An art colony or artists' colony is a place where creative practitioners live and interact with one another. Artists are often selected through a formal process, for a residency from a few weeks to over a year, beginning with the early 20th century models, such as MacDowell Colony and Yaddo. Hundreds of modern-day artist colonies now offer the benefit of time, space, and collaborative time away from the usual workaday world.Worldwide. The two primary organizations serving artist colonies and residential centers are Res Artis, based in Amsterdam, and the Alliance of Artists Communities, based in Providence, Rhode Island. The Intra-Asia Network, based in Taiwan, is a less formal body working to advance creative communities and exchanges throughout Asia. These consortia comprise most of the world's active artists' colonies. The art movement itself has only started to be investigated by scholars, with the chief historical studies consisting of Michael Jacobs's introductory The Good and Simple Life and Nina Lubren's Artists' Colonies in Europe 1870 to 1910. Formative period in Europe. Art colonies initially emerged as village movements in the 19th and early 20th century. It is estimated that between 1830 and 1914 some 3,000 professional artists participated in a mass movement away from urban centers into the countryside, residing for varying lengths of time in over 80 communities. There seem to have been three chief forms of these settlements, consisting of villages with transient and annually fluctuating populations of artists, mostly painters who visited for just a single summer season, villages with a semi-permanent mix of visiting and resident artists, villages in which a largely stable group of artists decided to settle permanently. In the latter villages, artists invariably bought or built their own houses and studios, while artist colonies appeared across Europe, as well as in America and Australia. Lubren has found that the majority of colonies were clustered in the Netherlands, central Germany, and France. Overall, artists of 35 different nationalities were represented throughout these colonies, with Americans, Germans and British forming the largest participating groups. This gave socializing a cosmopolitan flavor. Russia, Sweden, England, Austria, Germany, France, Australia and the United States were represented at our table, all as one large family, and striving towards the same goal. The painter Annie Goethe penned in 1885 in an essay on her recent experiences at one French colony. Villages can also be classified according to the nationalities they attracted. Barbizon, Pontavon, Giverny, Gottweg, Newlyn and Dachau drew artists from around the world and had a pronounced international flavor. Americans were always a major presence at Ridgesort, Egmond, Gres-sur-Loing, Laren and St. Ives. Gres-sur-Loing went through a Scandinavian phase in the 1880s, and Germans were the largest group after the indigenous Dutch at Kotweg. On the other hand, foreigners were rare at Sint Maartens Latem, Tervuren, Neguebanya, Kronberg, Staithes, Worperswede and Willingshausen, while Skagen hosted mainly Danes and a few other Scandinavians. Some painters were renowned within artistic circles for settling down permanently in a single village, most notably Jean-François Millet at Barbizon, Robert Wiley at Pontavon, Otto Modson at Worperswede, Heinrich Cotto at Willinghausen, and Claude Monet at Giverny. They were not necessarily leaders, although these artists were respected and held a certain moral authority in the respective colonies. There were also regular colony hoppers who moved about the art colonies of Europe in a nomadic fashion. Max Liebermann, for instance, painted at Barbizon, Dachau, Etzinghausen and at least 6 short-lived Dutch colonies. Frederick Waugh worked in Barbizon, Concarneau, Gres-sur Erlanger, St. Ives and Provincetown in the United States. Everett Peters was active at Barbizon, Egmond, Katwijk, Laren, Blaricum, Volendam and Oosterbeek. Elizabeth Armstrong Forbes painted at Pontavon, Zandvoort, Newland and St. Ives. The greater number of early European art colonies were to be casualties of the First World War. Europe was no longer the same place socially, politically, economically, and culturally, and art colonies seemed a quaint anachronism in an abrasively modernist world. However, a small proportion did endure in one or another form, and owe their continuing existence to cultural tourism. The colonies of Arendshoop, Barbizon, Fischerhude, Katwijk, Laren, St. Martin's Latham, Skagen, Volendam, Willingshausen and Warpersweet not only still operate in a modest fashion, but run their own museums where, besides maintaining historic collections of work produced at the colony, they organize exhibition and lecture programs. If they have not fared as well, several formerly major colonies such as Concarneau and Newland are remembered via small yet significant collections of pictures held in regional museums. Other colonies succumbed during the late 20th century to cultural entrepreneurs who have redeveloped villages in the effort to simulate, within certain kitsch parameters, the authentic appearance of the colony during its artistic heyday. This is not always successful, with Giverny, Gressuerling, Kronberg, Leopoldu, Pontavon, Schwann and Tervuren probably being among the most insensitively commercialized of the former art colonies. American colonies. Some art colonies are organized and planned, while others arise because some artists like to congregate, finding fellowship and inspiration and constructive competition in the company of other artists. The American Academy in Rome, founded in 1894 originally as the American School of Architecture, which in the following year joined with the American School of Classical Studies, is often cited as the early model for what would become the modern arts and humanities colony. Its well-funded, well-organized campus and extensive program of fellowships were soon replicated by early 20th century artist colonies and the wealthy benefactors. The Provincetown Art Colony came into being when Charles Webster Hawthorne opened his Cape Cod School of Art there in the summer of 1899. Other noted artists arrived and expanded the colony. In 1914 the Provincetown Art Association was founded. Business and professional people from the community as well as established artists provided the initial leadership, and by 1916, a Boston Globe headline read, "Biggest art colony in the world at Provincetown." Provincetown claims to be the oldest continuously operating artists colony in the United States. The Woodstock Art Colony in Woodstock, New York began as two colonies. First, Birdcliff, founded in 1902 by Ralph Radcliffe Whitehead, Harvey White, and Bolton Brown, and then the Maverick Colony, founded by Harvey White after seceding from Birdcliff in 1904. The town of Woodstock remains an active center of art galleries, music, and theatrical performances. The MacDowell Colony in Peterborough, NH was founded in 1907 by Edward MacDowell, a composer, and his wife Marion. MacDowell was inspired by his knowledge of the American Academy in Rome, and its mission to provide American artists with a home base at the center of classical traditions and primary sources. MacDowell, who was a trustee at the American Academy, believed that a rural setting, free from distractions, would prove to be creatively valuable to artists. He also believed that discussions among working artists, architects and composers would enrich their work. In upstate New York on Lake George, Golden Heart Farm Art Colony, the summer residence of Thomas and Wilhelmina Weber Furlong of the Art Students League of New York, opened in the summer of 1921. The colony and artists in residence activity were at the center of the American modernist movement, as important artists from Manhattan traveled to Golden Heart Farm to escape the city and study with the couple. In Maryland, the Mid-Atlantic Plein Air Company, most notable for the involvement of artist William David Simmons, is to this day active in its mission to bring local artists in touch with classical painting traditions. Another famous colony, Yaddo in Saratoga Springs, NY, soon followed. Spencer Trask and his wife Katrina Trask conceived the idea of Yaddo in 1900, but the first residency program for artists did not formally initiate until 1926. Oxbow School of Art and Artists Residency was founded in 1910 by Frederick Fersman and Walter Marshall Clute, two faculty members from the School of the Art Institute of Chicago. Fersman and Clute's vision was to create a respite where faculty and students could immerse themselves completely in art making, surrounded by a supportive community of artists and an inspired landscape of natural dunes, woods and water. Oxbow is located in Saugatuck, Michigan. In Delray Beach, Florida, a seasonal artists and writers colony existed during the winter months from the mid-1920s until the early 1950s. The Delray Beach enclave was noted for attracting many famous cartoonists of the era. In 1973, Edna Street, Vincent Milley's sister Norma created the Milley Colony for the Arts at the historic site of Steepletop in Austerlitz, NY. The Taos Art Colony in Taos, New Mexico is an example of more spontaneous development. Once artists began settling and working in Taos, others came. Art galleries and museums were opened and the area became an artistic center, though not a formal, funded art colony providing artists with aid, as Yaddo and MacDowell do. An influential art colony in New York was the Roycroft community. Nearby was the cabin of the Saturday Sketch Club used by Buffalo art students who specialized in outdoor oil painting. Jerome, Arizona is a town of 400 people that was once a thriving copper mining town of 15,000. When the mines closed, Jerome became a ghost town in the 1950s. In the 1960s, hippies discovered Jerome and settled there atop the Mingus Mountains, with a sweeping view of Sedona and the Verde Valley. Today, much of the population is working artists, writers, and musicians with a very eclectic mix of art galleries and working studios, open to the public. The artists at Carmel by the Sea, California coalesced in 1905 and incorporated their art gallery and meeting rooms a year later as the Carmel Arts and Crafts Club. They staged annual and special exhibitions, which attracted distinguished visiting artists from across the country, and provided professional instruction in painting, sculpture, and crafts. At the urging of his former student Jenny V. Cannon, William Merritt Chase was persuaded to teach his last summer school here in 1914. Between 1919 and California, 1948, it was the largest art colony on the Pacific coast of the United States. In 1927, the Carmel Art Association replaced the Arts and Crafts Club and thrives today as the nexus for the art community on the peninsula of Monterey, California and Big Sur. The Carmel Art Institute was established in 1938 and included among its illustrious instructors Armand Hansen and Paul Doherty. Eastern European colonies in the 20th and 21st century. Many art colonies continue across Eastern Europe in Bulgaria, Slovenia, Croatia, Macedonia and Serbia. They are organized by a range of bodies including city councils, monasteries, private collectors and artists. Generally, the colonies only exist for a few weeks each year as many of the participants work on an academic calendar. Some Some of the colonies have been in existence for over 40 years, and the reputation allows them to attract a range of international artists. Some examples of these groups may be found at Gamziograd, Serbia; Ohrid Colony, Ramazzotti, Macedonia; Strumitsa, Macedonia; Veles, Macedonia. Other notable examples: Europe, France, Argenteuil, Auvers-sur-Oise, Barbizon, Serrat, Etaples, Giverny, Grez-sur-Loing, Pont-Aven and La Poldhu, United Kingdom, Chipping-Campden, Gloucestershire, Ditchling, Sussex, Glasgow School, Glasgow, Newlyn, Cornwall, St Ives, Cornwall, Staithes, North Yorkshire, Walberswick, Coburn's Path, Kirkcudbright, the Holland Park Circle, Holland Park, West London, Germany, Arendshoop, Benz, Dachau, Hiddensee, Kronberg, Kalmans, Warpersweet, Schwan, Greece, Argalesti, South Pelion, Belgium, Sint Maartens Latem, Tervuren, Cyprus, Lemper, Denmark, Skagen, Bornholm School of Painters, Funen Painters, Odsherred Painters, Norway, Asgardstrand, Norway, Netherlands, Bergen, North Holland, Domburg, Kotvik, Laren, Kortenho, Scheveningen, Norden, Oosterbeek, Ridgersword, Finland to Usla, Poland, Kazimierz Dolny, Krzemieniec, Zakopane, Lithuania, Nida, Hungary, Preskurt Art Colony, Budapest, Gondolo, Hodmezova-Saheli, Kexkamet, Naguibania, Cesados Road Art Colony, Budapest, Santandra, Zolnok, Russia, Abramsyevo, Peredelkino, Talashkino, Serbia, Savamala, Belgrade, Australia, artists' camps around Sydney Harbour, Australia, Montserrat, Melbourne, Australia, Americas, Brazil, Instituto Sacatar, Salvador, Brazil, Mexico, San Miguel de Allende, Guanajuato, Mexico, Canada, Emma Lake Artists Workshops, Emma Lake, Saskatchewan, Canada, United States, Arden, Delaware, Berkeley, California, Bolinas, California, Brandywine School, Chadsford, Pennsylvania, Brown County Art Colony, Brown County, Indiana, Bugtussle, Alabama, Birdcliff Colony, Woodstock, New York, Carl Street Studios, Old Town, Chicago, Carmel by the Sea, California, Cornish Art Colony, Cornish, New Hampshire, Coscob, Connecticut, Delray Beach, Florida, Eagle's Nest Art Colony, East Aurora, New York, Roycroft Campus, Galena, Illinois, Gloucester, Massachusetts, Grand Marais, Minnesota, Greenwich Village, New York City, Isles of Shoals, Maine, New Hampshire, Jerome, Arizona, Laguna Beach, California, Millet Colony, Austerlitz, New York, Monhegan, Maine, Montclair, New Jersey, Monterey, California, Nespelem, Washington, New Hope, Pennsylvania, New Rochelle Artist Colony, New Rochelle, New York, North Conway, New Hampshire, Nyack, New York, Oakland, California, Old Lyme Art Colony, Old Lyme, Connecticut, Ogunquit, Maine, Pacific Grove, California, Palinville, New York, Pond Farm, Guerneville, California, Provincetown, Massachusetts, Fine Arts Work Center, Provincetown, Massachusetts, Ragdale, Lake Forest, Illinois, Richmond Group, Richmond, Indiana, Rockport, Massachusetts, Santa Fe, New Mexico, Silvermine, Connecticut, Skowhegan, Maine, South Mountain Road, New City, New York, St. Augustine, Florida, Stone City Art Colony, Stone City, Iowa, Taos, New Mexico, the studios of Key West, Florida, Tree Studio Building and Annexes, Chicago, Illinois, Ucross Foundation, Wyoming, Village of the Arts, Bradenton, Florida, Williamsburg, Brooklyn, New York City, Woodstock, New York, Yaddo, Saratoga Springs, New York, Uruguay. Fundación Pablo Achagari, San Carlos Municipality, Maldonado,